Welcome, Jodeen. What a pleasure to have you on Masterminds Fireside Chat with me today.
Well, I have to tell you, I am so excited that you invited me in here. I am just thrilled that you are on this mission and it aligns with what I've been doing. So I look forward to our chat and hopefully I can add some value to your community and, bring in some wins that you guys can take and start. And the big thing I always like to do is leave some actionable actions. So hopefully through our conversation, people will grab onto that and they'll be able to, implement it into what they've got going on and help them grow. And the main thing is that we all work together to make this world a better place.
Indeed, thank you. And that's Jodeen. Jodeen, I know you and I, we have communicated. I know what you do. However, let's start with the mission that you are on and what you have been doing and the rich experience of over 35 years that you have. Oh my God. So let's hear it from you, Jodeen.
Sounds great. Well, first of all, I grew up on a farm. So I say 35 plus years of entrepreneurship, but it's actually a lifetime because as a farmer, you just work from sun up to sundown. And, I grew up not realizing like you could hire like mechanics or electricians or any of that because my dad just did all of that. So like when I went off to college, I had a rude awakening. Like, actually, you take a tire to the tire place and they fix it. And I was like, oh my gosh, really? How do they do it? I was like amazed because like we just did everything. So with that, I became very mechanically inclined. My mom had a garden the size of the football field. So like we were out there, pulling weeds and harvesting and all that. And that came with, hustling. We went to the food stands and, the farmers markets and all that. And we were hustling jams and tomatoes and cucumbers. And so, I just grew up. It was in my DNA all the way through. So when I got out of college, I started my own flower shop. So that was my first endeavor. And I had a rude awakening. I think we all go to college with the expectation that they're going to, teach us what we need to know. But when I went to start my flower shop, they hadn't done any crap. Excuse the language, but I was like, I literally had to like start figuring out how do I start this brick and mortar from the ground up. There was no association. I was in Colorado and ended up helping them get a flower shop and greenhouse management course or association going, revived it a little bit for them just because I kept asking questions and, so a lot of good came out of it. But thank goodness I was that farmer blood because I had the tenacity and I had the knowledge of going out and asking, how do I do this? How do I do this? And I wasn't afraid to, go to the right people and maybe I went to the wrong people too, but either way, I did it. So that was the beginning of my journey. I just started a business from scratch and we did very well. We were in Breckenridge, Colorado, and to give you a perspective, on one Labor Day weekend, we did 28 weddings.
Oh, wow.
We were busy. We were a destination. And the other crazy thing is because I didn't really know anything, I realized that because it was a destination wedding, the grooms didn't have a place to pick up their tuxedos, right? So I was like, I should provide that service. So I reached out to Jim's Formal Wear, got this $50 book, and we did it where, the groom got his tuxedo free if he rented 10 tuxedos. So like he'd go over the hill because he didn't pay for it, And all of a sudden, Jim's Formal Wear came in and they handed me this award. And I was like, what's this? And they're like, you're in the top 10 for the nation for renting tuxedos.
I didn't know that. That was awesome.
And I was like, oh, cool. And they looked around, they're like, where's your mannequin? And I'm like, mannequin? I'm like, what's that? And they're like, well, you're in the top 10 and you don't even have a mannequin? And I'm like, am I supposed to?
Yeah. And this goes to prove that, you don't have to just follow what everybody else is doing. You could have your own way and you could be totally determined to make that way work. I love this.
Exactly. The biggest part that I got out of that, if you solve your customer or your client's problem, it's going to work for you. And that's the thing. The problem is that these grooms were coming in from out of state, out of town, and they didn't want to have to pick up 10 to 15 to 20 tuxedos and haul them up the mountain in a rental car or, in their own car or whatever. So everything was shipped to us. We, fluffed them all up, delivered them to wherever they were staying, or they'd come and pick them up. We'd arrange that. They'd wear the tuxedos, bring them back to us. We'd ship them all back to Jim's Formal Wear, and that was it. And, we solved the problem. In solving that problem, we became one of the top 10 distributors of tuxedos for Jim's Formal Wear without a mannequin.
That is extremely important. And I'm very sure this story goes to inspire so many people. I'm an event planner, so I know the madness that events have around it, right? But this goes to prove that, even in your brick and mortar store, as long as you have the passion to solve your customer's problem and you're willing to do it your way, and of course, fail forward, learn and fix things, everything will be okay and worth it at the end of the day.
Yep. And the big thing is the networking. That was, because the thing is if when a bride was coming up to me, they didn't have a lot of time. They were renting for a hotel to stay there. They were looking at the venues. They were doing all these different things. So, the flowers are kind of after they get their venue, I was kind of one of their next stops. So what I would do is I would have a select group of people and say, and everybody has different personalities. I would say, these I feel would be the best for you. And so I would refer out the caterer, the photographer, and, the chauffeur. I had different things lined up. So I really became, and, I was a florist. But I tried to package as much for them so that it would make it easy for them. And 98% of the people that came into my shop, I closed. I was able to, get the deposit by the time they walked out, just because we took care of them, we serviced them. And I think that's really important because I think in our world, we've kind of lost customer service. People don't feel like, they need to provide it, but it's still crucial because if your client's not happy, they're not going to return to you. And it's more expensive to go find a new client than it is to service the ones that you have. So, that was always kind of instilled with me because of that farm life. And, you always did the right thing and took care. Like I grew up, we didn't even we left our keys in our vehicle. And we were told to leave the doors unlocked because if somebody got hurt, if there was an accident and they showed up and they needed help, then they needed to be able to call, back then we didn't have cell phones, obviously, but they needed to be able to use the phone. If they needed to take the vehicle to, that was the mentality that I grew up on. So very trusting, very, service oriented, you help others. And I'm glad that that's in my DNA because it's made it a lot easier to be an entrepreneur because I want to serve people.
Wow. And talking about serving people, I know that you have been extremely passionate about running masterminds, serving people, and you have been, is it true that you have been running Mastermind for over 35 years?
Well, the book Think and Grow Rich was handed to me 35 years ago by my mentor. And he said, this is your business Bible. And so I didn't realize it, but one of the things that Napoleon Hill talks about in there is he talks about the imaginary mastermind. And so I, started a business. We already had 2 children. And we actually ended up with 5 daughters. So I was very busy, trying to be a mom, trying to be a wife, how to run a business, and then, a little bit of sanity in there. Didn't happen, but I tried. I know. But I learned and realized that I could draw on the imaginary. And what he's talking about with imaginary, if you have like mentors, like, I always say like Oprah Winfrey, it's really hard to get to Oprah Winfrey or, even Tony Robbins, like on a 1-to-1. I mean, you could do it, but you got to pay a lot of money. Exactly. And all of these people, and like, for me, Warren Buffett, because of the financial part of it, because that's really important to me. Dave Ramsey, all these different people I've had as my imaginary counsel, and I'd, like asking them questions. What do you think of this? And so I always kind of drew on that, that higher power of, and I listened to my intuition. That was really a driving point. So I had masterminds with them for over 35 years. I really drew on different people throughout my different careers, and it worked for me. And people kind of like, well, you're kind of wacky. But when you really look at his book, and he talks about the spiritual and that higher power, and really getting into what he is talking about. And this book was written in 1937. So, it was actually cut back because he did go a little too far on some of the stuff. So they made him cut some of that out. But, it's there because it's successful. And, all of our mentors that we have out there today, I'd be really, really surprised, anybody that's in leadership, if they at one point have not read Napoleon Hill and applied the principles. Tony Robbins, Dean Graciato, John Maxwell. I mean, I can name hundreds of them, Oprah Winfrey, Brandon Burchard. I mean, everybody at some point will refer to that book, Think and Grow Rich. And he has a whole chapter on masterminds and the importance of gathering in like-minded people, because if you have family and friends, I can tell you, they probably don't understand what you do. Like, I get asked all the time, they're like, what do you do? And I'm like, I have to tell you, because they don't get it. I've always done brick and mortar, and now I'm in the digital world. And, I talk to people in India and think it's no big deal. Like, I have friends all over the world, and everyone's like, and I bring up things, and they're like, how do you know these people? Where do you, what do you do? And I just, love to talk to people and spread joy and happiness, and teach them that success is a mindset. And that's a big part of my masterminds. It gets you with like-minded people. It helps you understand that if you have a problem, those people are going to help you solve it. And, I wish when I was starting the flower shop, I would have been able to find, other like-minded florists to be able to really, work together and solve those problems. But, I didn't have it. So I went to the imaginary ones, and they helped me along the way.
Yeah.
So that was a short answer.
I'm good with that. So that's a very interesting point, because when I talk about masterminds, people look at me as if I'm talking about a term that was coined yesterday. And one of the first introduction, or the first pitch that I make on mastermind is not a term that was coined yesterday. If you have ever laid your hands on Think and Grow Rich, you would know masterminds have been there. Right? And every time there has been an information exchange, even if you do not know, you are part of a mastermind. And that leads to, me to my next question. And this is probably the only question where I will ask you to define something. Now, when we talk about masterminds, right, there are so many definitions. And we were speaking the other day, and, how people are loosely using this term in their own businesses and with their own tribes. And that's the worst part anyway. But according to you, and I'm just talking about your personal one, according to you, what is your definition of mastermind? Or what is your favorite definition of mastermind?
Well, the big thing I think that people get construed is they will call an event a mastermind, which is fine as long as you follow the protocol of what that entails. A mastermind is not a lecture where you get up on your stand and you preach to the choir of how they should go do things and then walk away, because that's not what a mastermind is. That's a lecture or a workshop. A mastermind is where you get up, and as a mastermind, I'm a facilitator. So I will ask questions, but then those questions are meant to be answered by the audience. And a true mastermind is where if you come to the table with a problem, then it's a roundtable discussion as far as how could you solve that problem? Because what I see from my perspective and how to solve your problem is different from what you see. And what I see and what John over here sees is a different perspective. So
Hmm.
if you have 8 to 9 people in your mastermind, you're getting a perspective from 8 to 9 different people
Hmm.
that see it through different lenses.
Oh.
They have different experiences. They have different knowledge. And, like for me, coming in as a past florist, you may have a problem. You don't have enough clients.
Hmm.
I would probably say to you, go look at renting out tuxedos, add that to your repertoire.
Hmm.
And it's real easy to do. You don't
Hmm.
have to have a mannequin.
Sure.
So I bring my knowledge, my experience to your problem
Hmm.
through a different lens. And all of a sudden, instead of you feeling weighed down because you don't know how to solve this problem,
Hmm.
you're getting the knowledge, the experience, the expertise, and the journey of, these 8 to 9 people.
Hmm.
And it brings a whole different perspective. And a lot of times when you come in heavy with this problem, you
Hmm.
walk away feeling like you're going to be able to conquer it, because now you're getting different perspectives of
Yeah.
how to handle it. So
Great,
that's my
great
definition
input.
of a mastermind, where you actually get to be involved. When I facilitate masterminds, I always tell everybody I talk a lot, but I'm giving you information and
Hmm.
I'm asking you questions. So
Hmm.
that's my job. I am here just as a facilitator. I will share a little bit of my experience, but overall, this is about you and how it pertains to your world. How does it resonate to you? Let's get in a true mastermind too, you're getting down into those deep layers.
Yes.
So you're asking deeper questions. It's
Hmm.
not like, what do you think of that?
Hmm.
And wait for an answer. It's like, okay, how are you applying this into your business? Where do you see this affects your personal life, your clients? How are you doing this, and how is this affecting your employees? Like,
Hmm.
we're going deep, 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 deep. And Dean Graciato talks about the 7 layers, where you're going deeper and deeper and deeper. And that's when I do a mastermind, that's my goal, is to, get off of that surfaficial? No, whatever that word is.
Yeah,
But
right.
that top layer, let's just, okay, everybody has that top layer, but where the real growth and the real answers are in those layers that are about 3 or 4 layers deep. And my masterminds, they go away really having to think about what's going on.
Hmm.
So,
That's very interesting, Jodeen, because you know what you just said. Let's talk about a mastermind where we have 8 to 10 people with the similar objective, because that's really the only protocol that we have for mastermind, right? A group of people coming together with a common objective. And when you talked about that problem, let's say this is an entrepreneur's mastermind, or let's say marketing mastermind, and when somebody is coming up with a specific problem, now you're not only going to get perspectives of what works and what doesn't work for around that question, but at the end of the mastermind, I'm going to walk away with probably 4 different solutions, or even more, depending on what kind of problem that I came here with. And that obviously doesn't happen in conferences or workshops or regular training programs. And that is exactly, according to me, that is one of the biggest differentiators of masterminds, between masterminds and the other programs. So what do you consider as the biggest differentiator between masterminds and trainings and coaching?
I think the big thing is as you're speaking to other people and taking the information in, a lot of times, not always, but a lot of times, the answer comes within. And when the answer comes within, then it makes it easier to put it into action and into motion. And sometimes those answers won't come. I will tell you that right now, because I've experienced that, and it's frustrating. But a lot of times you're not ready for those answers.
Yeah.
And I really believe that the universe provides us the perfect timing of everything. And I am not a very patient person. So I get tested quite often on, what it's like to not get the answer.
Mm.
But when you really tune into your intuition, And that, I think that that's part of the mastermind part of it is, learning to listen to your gut, learning to your intuition, because that answer is there to protect you. Napoleon Hill goes deep into the sixth sense and how that is there to guide us. So I think it's really important for people to, acknowledge that and understand, okay, I'm not getting an answer, but there's a reason why I'm not. So I don't want to mislead everybody and think that everything's rosy and you're going to get all the answers, because there are times when you don't get the answer, and that's okay. That's okay.
And you know what? This is what happens even when you go for let's say, you're going for a training with some of the biggest and the brightest trainers out there. The fact is, if I'm not open enough, if I'm not receptive to those answers, to those tools, to those systems, then probably I'm not going to walk away with a lot of things to work on, because A, I'm not open, and therefore B, I have not carried back anything very solid. And I think Mastermind kind of addresses it, but again, it's a very inner thing for an individual to work on. And that brings me to my next point of discussion is, why do you think, or rather, do you think people at some point in their lives they should absolutely go to some of the masterminds to experience the power of masterminds? And if
definitely,
yes, then why?
Yeah, I'm a very huge advocate of masterminds. Obviously, that's that's my thing. The one thing though, I want to just kind of touch base on that last comment that you were making. If you come to a mastermind, come to be transparent and omnipresent. One of the exercises I do when we start our mastermind is we breathe in and really just let the energy flow. If you take in the energy from the ground and the light from above, we actually bring that in so that you really clear your mindset. Everybody shuts their phones off. This is an hour where, no interruptions. I mean, if somebody's died, they can send you a text message. But, other than that, this is your time that you need to get grounded. You need to become omnipresent. You need to be transparent. And that's when you're going to get the most out of a mastermind. If you go there, rigid and closed-minded and, not wanting to go, don't waste your time, and don't waste the other people's time.
Right.
So it's really important, like for me, like I said, when I start a mastermind, we all become centered. We all, just relax and open up to the universe to get those answers. Because I think that that's really important. Our lives are so busy. We've got so much electronical energy going on that, I feel a lot of our bodies and our universe shuts down. We're all like, the phone, got my phone. I mean, we're so into that.
Phone addiction.
It is, and it's like, okay, we're here. We're gonna work on some things, and so I think that that's really, really important. As far as my belief of everybody being in a mastermind, I truly believe they do need to be in one, experience, and find a good one, because there are unfortunately some bad facilitators of masterminds, and you'll see that misrepresentation. And there's actually some questions that you can ask. And maybe that will be part of my my free offer for you guys, because I know you've got a lot of new people. Mastermind's kind of new in your culture. And I'll put that together. I've got a PDF that I'll throw together that it's questions that you can ask the mastermind so that you understand if it's a good fit for you. And there's some good questions to ask there. And so I'll put that in a PDF for you guys so that you can, because I think that would be very helpful to understand, so that you just don't, because sometimes you have to pay for the masterminds, and, I just don't want people to throw money out there to find out that, it wasn't really a mastermind. So that would be good for I think that your tribe would probably do well with that.
Where were you, Jodeen? I could have helped. I could have used that PDF some time ago. So, as we were discussing that day, it really pains me when, something is advertised as mastermind, and at the end of the day, it is just a conference where you don't even know who are the people and what their troubles are, and it's just one person speaking or a couple of guest speakers speaking, that's it, and that is not really a mastermind. And it pains me because this is also misguiding others, right? And that's why I asked that question for people who have not really experienced mastermind. And that was basically, the intention of doing this series. I want people to know that mastermind is not just yet another conference or yet another seminar. It is way beyond it, way deeper into it. And you walk away not only with knowledge, sure, there is a knowledge sharing session that happens, but you walk away with clarity, and more often than not, even solution to your deepest problem, or the problem that you put out on the table
Right.
during mastermind. So it's even I believe it's such an important thing to be a part of mastermind. Now the question is, there are so many experts and business owners who are not leveraging, hosting. They're not leveraging masterminds. They are not even thinking about masterminds as of now, and there are plenty of them. But here's the thing, they're so good at what they do. They're industry experts, they are the leaders, they are the thought leaders, they are the business leaders. I was speaking with somebody this morning, and she is excellent in HR practices. She is an HR head. But they are so good at what they're doing, but they are not leveraging the power or even principles of masterminds. Now, what is your message for experts like this or business owners like this, and what would you tell them to encourage them to start hosting their own masterminds, or at least start embedding some principles from masterminds into the coaching and trainings or workshops that they are already doing? What do you think about that?
That's an excellent question. And one of the things that I have seen where somebody new, like you're in the knowledge business broker, so the KBB with Tony Robbins and Dean Graciato.
Yeah.
The thing is what I've seen is a lot of people, they have a message, they want to get it out there, but they don't know how to package that. And one of the things that I have done is I've come along and helped these people and put on a virtual live summit. Now, a virtual live summit is an amazing experience because one, you become a knowledge broker, you become an expert. And if you don't have that clarity yet, you can kind of pull in different people that are in, the lanes that you want to go. And all of a sudden you can go, oh, wow, I want to do this. I always kind of use let's say you're a photographer and you're not quite sure, you've been taking pictures and you want to go deeper into it and you want to help people in that field or that lane. So by bringing in experts, like let's say you bring in a wedding photographer, you bring in a portrait photographer, you bring in a wildlife photographer, you bring in a still shot, you bring in all these experts and you start interviewing just kind of like you are with me, just start talking to them, learn a little bit about it. All of a sudden you realize you love the animals, you love the birds, the sunset, you love all that. But then as you talk to this expert, you realize that he's up at like 4 a.m. packing up all of his cameras and sitting out there in the dewy, cold, 14 below North Dakota, weather, waiting for that perfect shot, and I'm like, ain't happening to this chick.
Or somewhere in Savannah.
Exactly. So you check that up. It's like, okay, but you've learned, you've understood what it really truly takes to be that, to go deep into that lane. And I'm just using, photography as an example. So, and it applies to anything. But by bringing that virtual live summit in, and, I always tell people that, get about 15 people in the fields and have a 3-day event. And you can just interview them. You get to learn about them. You become an expert. Plus you network. All of a sudden it's like, down the road, like I have drawn on so many people that I've had in my mastermind, and I've become a really great networker. It's like, I've done all kinds of different things, and I'm a certified John Maxwell speaker. So I've helped a lot of coaches. If you don't know where you want to go, that thought, that power of the virtual live summit will move you and transition you into that mastermind, because you learn how to interview people, you learn how to ask questions, and then you bring it all together, and you get a lot of aha moments. And so that's one of the tools that I use for setting up a mastermind, because then you can use that power of, setting up your mastermind and bring it together. Now, I do in-house masterminds as well. I love those the best because, the energy and everything that comes together is amazing. In fact, I'm going to be putting one together this summer where they're going to come out to North Dakota. So like my closest Starbucks is 82 miles away. So like they can't go check out across the street at Starbucks, they got to deal with their stuff. So I'm looking forward. We'll do like a 3-day mastermind out here. I have an old farmstead. So we've got, our barn is 115 years old, or 18 years old. The house is 115 years old. So there's just that energy of, that quietness. My closest neighbor is half a mile away. We've got a shop, a studio that we're finishing off that will be set up for that so that they can just really, go deep into getting some clarity, get some ground work going with it, and really just get a kind of a pathway of where they want to go with
indeed.
And use that power of the mastermind as well, because then that physical part is very anchoring and it's the best way to do it. But then when they go away, we can do the Zooms and still have that deeper connection because we've met together. So.
Yeah, that makes sense. And for experts and for industry leaders and thought leaders, the very fact that you talked about, is network with others. Talk to others. And by doing that, not only you're exchanging the best practices, but think about the power that they will bring back to their audience, to their community, to their group of people or their team members. So even I truly believe that those people who have never leveraged the power of Mastermind, start small. Like, I love this idea of virtual summit that you have talked about. And I know you have to really fight your inner demons to do that. Ask me. I have walked that journey. I know how scary it can get, especially if you're a solopreneur or if you are a brick and mortar entrepreneur. You're so used to, doing your business in your own community, or for online entrepreneurs, it's so comfortable, just hiding behind the screen and doing our business. But the power of Mastermind, this power of connecting with somebody from other corner of the world, or somebody in person or online, whatever it is, but getting that and serving your own community, your own tribe, it is so powerful. And it is almost like, as Dean says, if you're not doing that for your community, for your tribe, if you're not sharing what you already know, and if you're not doing it in a mastermind way, I believe that they are doing this service. So, one part is the impact, one part is the service that they could, the way they can serve the tribe, their own tribe. And the second part is the profits, right? Now, many times, like early today, I was on a call with somebody from USA, and he was asking me this question: "Oh, do you think, masterminds can be profitable? I see it's happening for, thought leaders, but what about people who are just getting started? I just have a 3-year-old business. Will it work for me?" And I see a lot of questions coming out, around this. And I thought, who other than Jodeen to ask that question first? So the question is, yes, masterminds can be used for a greater impact, serving people, but are masterminds even a profitable deal for business owners who would want to pursue or implement, host their own mastermind? What do you think about that?
Yes. And the one thing I have to tell you is, as an entrepreneur, a lot of times we're right-brained, we're really creative, but you got to be using that left brain, and you got to leverage. And I always tell people when I start with them and we're coaching them as to how to do like a virtual live summit, because even in a virtual live summit, you can make money off of that. And there's a whole structure, but you've got to know how to do that, because you can arbitrarily go out there and just, be a talk show host and never make any money off of it. So you have to have that strategic plan. And that's why it's important. And even, with a mastermind, you got to understand coaching comes with that. That's part of it. And the other part of that is the accountability, so that it drives you and makes sure, that you do have those systems in place, and you've got that. Because a lot of times, you don't make the money on the front end, but on the back end is where you make it. So you have to have those offers ready. You got to know where those prices are at. And, you've got to, and that's go through research, go into your industry, research everything. The one thing I want to just talk about a little bit about the power of like that virtual live summit and what it can do. Like for me, I took Think and Grow Rich, and that's my go-to. It's helped me through so much. I've had a lot of tragedies, and that's the other thing. I'm human. I've lost parents. My husband walked out on me. My businesses have failed at times, and it's like when I look back, it's when I walked away from Think and Grow Rich and wasn't applying those principles that I went through those valleys. And so as, I look at the peaks, I'm like, okay, I want more stability. I don't want, those higher peaks. So by hanging on to that Think and Grow Rich, but what I did is just to give you an idea on the power of like a virtual live summit, if you're not quite sure what you're going to do, I took each chapter and created a virtual live summit on that, because I can only bring so much to the table. Right. So by doing that, what happened is, like I was going to do a leadership development virtual live summit. And it was kind of around Christmas and New Year's, and I was working on my goals. So it was kind of a selfish reason, because I wanted to work on my goals. So I was like, oh, let's do this, And I put it all together in less than 15 days. It was like really quick.
Yeah.
But with that, I had 40 people. I only needed 12 to 15. That was the number I was looking for. I had 40 people apply to be on the virtual live summit. And then I took those other people and interviewed them off camera, off of the summit, leading up and behind, so that really did interview everybody, but it just worked out really good. And then I was like, okay, what's the first chapter here? Why do you, and so desire. In that, I didn't realize or understand that there are certified desire coaches. There's an organization, there's over 200 desire coaches. So
I didn't know that either.
Exactly. So when you make that decision that you're going to do something or you're going to become the expert, you start deep diving into that field, and you become the expert. So now I can tell people, you're having trouble with desire. I had 3 different coaches come in and speak into that week when we were covering desire. And they deep dived and went further than I would have ever been able to go on desire, because, I haven't studied it. I understand it, but I haven't, deep dived into it. And they took us to a whole nother level. So that's the power of doing masterminds, bringing in experts, doing these virtual live summits, because you're in India. I'm in North Dakota. We are like this far apart, but yet we're together. We're united. We're like-minded. We're helping each other grow and become better people. And so, the virtual live summits just take that global and digital part and bring that into a mastermind. And that's how you can tie it in. And it's less invasive. It's like, oh, I got to put this mastermind in. I got to put this mastermind. Let's interview them first. Let's figure out what it is. Let's bring in the experts. And it just, to me, it's a little, baby step into it. And then when you go to put on a mastermind, you're facilitating everything. You've got the form of how you're going to run it. And, it's a good fit. So I think, the power of the mastermind is there. I feel everyone should definitely experience it. And it doesn't, you don't have to do a virtual live summit. I mean, I'm not saying that that's the go-to or, Hail Mary that everybody's
one of the options for people who are more comfortable with virtual summits or webinars, for instances.
Right. But then you get to network too. That's the big thing. You get to network. You're actually building your, and especially a lot of times people, when they're getting into this, they don't have a lot of money to throw at ads. So this is an easy way to get the organic, because when you invite that person in, like you're now into my tribe. So you get into my feed, I get into your feed. And that just is a great thing, because you're networking and, your friends are going to start seeing me. My friends are going to start seeing you, and their friends are going to start seeing you. So, I mean, it's just that organic reach is a really good way of doing it too.
and absolutely captive hot leads. They are not just, some cold leads floating in. And I believe that again answers, you have very beautifully answered my question about, are masterminds profitable, and can we make masterminds profitable? And what I hear is, yeah, eventually you will get to a level where, like Tony and Dean are, or Russell is, or Harv Eker is, right? So just to qualify for their mastermind, you have to go through an entire process, and you have to pay, and they are hosting some of the highest level and probably the most expensive masterminds of the world. And eventually each one of us has the potential to get there. But to start with, what I hear is, how can you make masterminds profitable for you, especially if you're starting in? It may not be right there at the front end, but the moment you get in, as you correctly said, the value ladder, right? They see what you're doing, even if you have to run a few masterminds free of cost in the beginning. I think, everybody, especially business owners or subject matter experts, should absolutely do that, because even if it is not a profitable proposition in the beginning, you still have the back end to work on. So as long as I have my funnel, as long as I have my front end, back end, and the value proposition solid, they are in my tribe, and the back end will do its own work. And I think eventually, those people who have experienced your mastermind, and they value your mastermind so much, that next year if you tell them, hey, you know what, this from this year onwards, this mastermind is going to be charged at whatever X number of dollars per month or per year, they will be more than happy to pay you, because A, you have already added so much of value, and B, they know you personally, and we don't mind paying money to somebody whom right? I would rather buy it from you than somebody else on the same topic. So
Right.
are masterminds profitable?
Yes. And the big thing with that too is I gotta, relationship.
Yeah.
And that boils down to that service.
Hmm.
Now what I did is I actually put on a 17-day
Mhm.
mastermind. I ran about 30 people
Wow.
through it. Yeah.
17-day virtual?
Virtual. And what it was is we did a chapter a day on Think and Grow Rich. And there was always, 1 or 2 days that we were, something came up and we had to reschedule. So I always told everybody, it's because there's like 15 chapters in the book,
Mhm.
but and then you have the beginning test and then you have the ending test.
Hmm.
We kind of evaluate it that way.
Hmm.
And so I ran about 30 people through there, 17 days. And I think it totaled to be like 4 different groups. So, that's a lot of my time.
Yes.
But the big thing when you're starting masterminds, when you're trying to become the expert, the social proof is huge.
Hmm.
And so one of the things that I asked that anybody that walked through, if they could give me at the end a true evaluation of how they felt and a testimonial, so that I could, use that. That was kind of my penance for doing this for them. And it was interesting because anybody that got to like day 3 or 4, like they didn't even care, what time it was going to be. They were going to show up. Like I had people in South Africa that were staying awake at 11:30 at night, because we started at 8:30, and they were up until 1 or 2 in the morning, just so that they could be on there for 17 days to do this mastermind, because it became so addictive. It was so helpful. And it really just gave them, and a lot of people came in for business, thinking that they were going to do this, as what they needed for their business. But the reality is it actually helped them in their personal life deeper. And one of the ladies that went through it, she's like, yeah, my husband's asking me when we're going to do another mastermind.
Wow. How cool is that?
So, that's the power of the mastermind. I really strongly recommend that people embrace the possibility of doing it. As far as financially, yes. In the beginning, you may have to do 1 or 2 free ones. And even in John Maxwell, when I started, that's really where I got, the structure of the mastermind. I got exposed to how to put that out. And that was like in 2007 and 8, because that's how, they structured everything is through the power of the mastermind. And so he gave me the tools, and throughout, I did several of them here in the community, and then started to do them on the virtual summits or virtual platform as well. But the thing is, that was his teaching too. Do your first mastermind for free. A lot of times you can actually do like a lunch and learn. Like if you're going into corporations, you can do like a lunch and learn mastermind. Where you can't really get deep into, each person because you only have like an hour, but you can still give them a taste of what a mastermind's like, the message that you're bringing out, and, kind of condense that into an hour as a teaser. So that's another free way that you can get into corporates or, into your niche. And it's just really, really powerful to be able to, present that to the world and get deeper answers as to, problems that and it's not just problems, sometimes you come just to share your joys and your wins too. That's a big part of it. That's how we all start our mastermind. After we start breathing, everybody needs to give us our win because it's a positive thing. We want to make sure that everybody's, experiencing the positive as well. And then at the end, we try to go deep into the things. So yes, as far as profitable, and I think the bigger part of that too is when you start structuring yourself, look in the industry, obviously if in your industry, they're only charging $97 for, kind of the mindset and everything. You don't want to be charging 14,000, I mean, you got to have, so you got to research, you kind of got to see what everybody's doing. And I'm not saying that, just because everything's at $97 doesn't mean that it shouldn't be at 14,000 and you can get to that point. But a lot of times what you got to do is you got to start a little lower. You got your value ladder. Like my offer was the free. And then I went into actually a 17-week where we took each week and pulled that on. And then after that, there was one-on-one counseling and clientele that, I brought in. So, it's good to have that. I work with a lot of small businesses. And like I always say, tell me everything that every service that you're going to provide for a client. So that's, one of the first things we do. And then like the next part is, now I want you to price out what you're going to charge. And, it's like, well, I don't know. Well, go research. If you're a copywriter, what are you going to charge for, like 10 emails if that's what you're going to do? Or, if you are a social media manager or you want to become a social media manager, what are you going to charge for building out a funnel or a website or whatever it is? But get that on a menu. Basically when you go to a restaurant, what you're going to pay. Like you want a cheeseburger, you want a hamburger, the price is right there. It's the same aspect when you're starting a small business or a mastermind. You need that recipe card. You need that menu with the price list on there so that when somebody says, hey, I heard that you're doing this, what's that entail? How much does it cost me? You can
instant. You have to be ready with that, right?
Right. So you can, look at your, you've got your price sheet right here. And, let's see, you want the 2-day mastermind, that's going to be $397. We have one coming up. I think it's in, let me look. I think we're going to have another one in January or February, whatever it is. But then you become a real business. Right. And you start valuing yourself. And so you get that a few under your belt and, that's the thing, get the experience, because that's been another misuse of people. Well, I did one mastermind, so now I'm an expert. So I'm going to charge, $15,000 because that's what Tony Robbins does. Well, honey, Tony's done this for 40 years. So, you got to gain that experience. You got to gain that authority in it and make it real experience. Don't, like I said, that one-time mastermind doesn't make, you the top of the field of everything, unless you've been doing it all your life and you do have experience, then but, if you're just starting out, be real, be honest. And, are you in this for the long term or is it a quick buck? If you're in this for a long, if you're in for just a quick buck, don't go to do masterminds because you're doing everybody a disservice.
Exactly.
But if you've got a message and you really want to, change the world, make it a better place, then, definitely, the power of the mastermind is there. Put the work, put the time in. It's fun. You get to meet people from all over the world.
True.
When I did that first virtual live summit, I just threw it out there, and I ended up with, Ulysses was from South Africa. No, where was he from? He was from Indonesia. I had South Africa, and we
Wow.
had two from South Africa. Like, it was crazy. Like, all of a sudden, I was thinking that I might have, like, 10
Yeah.
people, and, it'd be like Chicago and California, and all of a sudden I'm looking at where these people are from, and I'm like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
I have a global event, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and it brought in, and, like, unfortunately, I felt so bad for him, because I think he actually stayed up until like 1 o'clock in the morning to get on
Uh,
the call, because of the
But
time
you know
change.
what? Those people who are driven, they will do that. I mean,
Right.
I have been experiencing and learning for the last 20 years of my life. And back then, webinars were not even an in thing in India for sure. I don't know about the rest of Asia. So I had to get up at 4 in the morning or stay up late at 2 in the night only to be on a webinar hosted by this expert from this geography. And I love doing that. I did it because I knew the value that it had. And the same thing is going to happen when somebody comes for your mastermind, because you're going to serve from your heart, and you are in any way an expert in what you're doing. It's just about taking that first step. And I know, as I was saying, I know that first steps could be really, really scary. And it's I always give the swimming analogy, right? So swimming is super scary and super difficult until you learn it. After that, it
Right.
just becomes a way of life, right? Same like driving. So for those people who are just getting started, and they don't want to go through this process of the learning and the falling and fixing, there are lots of people who are more than willing to help, is what I say. So there are mastermind, to those people like you who have been doing mastermind for years together, decades together, right? And there are people like me who have relatively a newer experience in mastermind, but we have learned, we have got certified, we have earned that credibility, and getting more and more every single day. So there are people like you, people like me, all across the globe, who can be reached. It is just a matter of looking up and reaching out, saying that, hey, I want to do my first mastermind. I am absolutely scared. Help me. How can you help me? And that's it. Somebody is going to tell you how to do that. Somebody will tell it for free. Somebody will charge you a small fee. Somebody will ask you to come to their mastermind or their training and coaching program. But as long as one is willing to learn and grow, um, their first mastermind, I believe, is just one call away.
Definitely. And I think the big thing is you just have to reach out and ask for help, because there are people that want to share and help you grow. I mean,
Yeah.
you got to, and that's the power of the network, or of the mastermind too, is we all want to see everybody succeed. There's an abundance of money out there.
Oh, yeah.
There's abundance of people out there. And I don't care what industry you are in, somebody needs that mastermind. And whatever your message is, you've had, and Dean talks about this. If you're kind of struggling, trying to figure out, what would be a good mastermind, the good way to look at it is, what are your blunders? What are your pain points? What are your struggles? Like, one of the masterminds that I'm got on the back burner and starting to start implementing will be on divorced women, over 50, how to go through that transition. How can they rewrite their pathway? A lot of times, later in life, when you're getting that divorce, all of a sudden, your retirement plan looks different. Your legacy has changed. And so how can you embrace that, and how can you come out ahead of that? And through my experience, I went in a deep valley for 2.5 years. That was really frustrating, because, like, I'm a go-getter. I'm like, make a decision. We're going to make this work. Everything's going to be okay. And all of a sudden, I was in that valley, and, I had a lot of layers. And it wasn't until I really started looking at, rewriting my purpose, understanding that, I could have a new journey, and I could rewrite that chapter, and it could be based on me because, you know, family of 5 and a husband and businesses, everything's always been about them. You know, I you know, my life was structured around that. And now all of a sudden it's like, whoa, you know, I can be a nomad. I can go travel. I mean, I'm coming to India to visit you girls. So
There you go. Welcome.
you know, I mean, you know, once you really start deep diving into that and going through that process, and what helped me is I was in masterminds, and, you know, even though I was down in those valleys, you know, like if I didn't show up, they called me, hey, where were you? You know, what's going on? And it's like, oh, you know,
accountability, right? Suddenly you are accountable. So suddenly you are answerable, and for good, with heart.
Right. So, I mean, even though, you know, I do masterminds with Think and Grow Rich, that is another mastermind that I will be bringing out because I think it's very powerful. I think it's something that's needed. There's a lot of us out there that have experienced that. Yeah. And so it's like, how do you take those pain points and make them into helping other people? And as you're helping other people, you can bring profitability into that too. So, you know, that's another way if you're kind of struggling of like, what do I do? You know, I don't want to, you know, maybe you've been in brick and mortar and you really don't want to, you know, tell people how to sell plastic ducks, you know, you're kind of tired of, even though they've made you good money, it's not like something that you want to do. So, you know, look at your pain points too. That's, you know, Dean talks about that. Make your blunders, make your pain points in your life, or your, you know, I never say people have failed. I don't think any of us have ever failed, because we're learning as we go. You know, I've had, you know, businesses that have, you know, not turned out the way I wanted to, but it's okay, because in the end, I learned a lot, and I can teach people, hey, you got to make sure that you're doing this now, because on the back end later on, this could happen. So.
And that brings me, that's such a powerful thing that you said. And I know from our last conversation, I was amused to know how you have taken Mastermind as a protocol, Mastermind principles, and how beautifully you have implemented that in various topics, in various arenas. I know you run more than one masterminds, for more than one topic. And that suddenly opened up my mind. I mean, again, this was again a power of Mastermind. Had I not heard that from you, probably I would have thought, okay, this is my niche, this is my core topic, and that's it. The Mastermind goes around it. But now when I look at it from a 14,000 feet level, I realize that it is just one model, one system that has been working beautifully. And I can take the same principles, and, you know, even a person sitting in a corporate world can take the same principles of Mastermind in their next coaching session or team meeting. They can actually implement this. And how powerful is that? So, you know what? Thanks, Jodeen. That conversation with you truly opened my mind. And this has been equally insightful.
Well, I'm excited, you know, and the other thing too, like, you can actually take a book like Think and Grow Rich, or, you know, that's John Maxwell. He's got 5 books out there that we are certified that we can teach, but he puts it in a mastermind teaching, so that when you are going through and reading the book, you're deep diving into that workbook, and you're really getting those answers personally for you, not based on my experience, but that. So, I mean, that's the other thing. Even if you're, you know, if you still can't figure out, like, I don't, you know, I'm not an expert, I don't want to do this, I don't do that. Find a book with a workbook and deep dive into a mastermind with that. And you'll learn how to facilitate it. You'll learn, you know, how to ask those deeper questions. And, you know, there's definitely a structure to mastermind. So, you know, if you are in a position and you can't hire somebody, or if you can't, you know, get in and figure out how to do it, you know, Google it. There's enough information out there that, you know, it will at least get you a base, because I think anybody and everybody should be, you know, facilitating masterminds, or at least be in a mastermind. I think as facilitators, we get a little bit more out of it, because we get the opportunity to really deep dive and listen to, you know, and a lot of times too, when you bring people together, they're a mirror. There's a reason the universe and the energy has been brought together. And so there's a mirror. And so a lot of times when people are talking about their problem, it goes down in, and you're like, ooh, crap.
So true. So true. So tell me, Jodeen, for somebody as powerful as you, and experienced, right? there would be so many people, and tell me, help me understand, how do people reach out to you? Do you help them teach how to run masterminds, and what are the services that you offer, or what is that one thought that you want to leave the listeners with? What is that? How is that they can reach out to you, and how is that you can help them?
That's a great question, and I appreciate you asking that. I think the big thing for right now, the best service that I can give people is teaching them how to do a virtual live summit if they're new to masterminds, because that is a very invasive, it's a very easy way to kind of get into the mode of it and how to structure it. So the virtual live summits, I can either do it with you. I've got a program that's set up that I'll kind of hold your hand and guide you, and we've got accountability. And then I also have virtual live summits where I set them up for people and I do the whole thing for them. They provide the speakers or whatever. It's not like I'm going to just go do everything. There is some stuff involved there.
Yeah,
but that works good, to get you started in the mastermind. Okay. If you are kind of intrigued and want to know, how to run a really good mastermind, definitely get in touch with you, because I know that you've run them and you're qualified. But, if anybody wants to, if resonates and wants to talk to me, definitely I have a whole structure on how to set up masterminds. And how to run them. The best way is on my personal page, on Messenger, especially doing the global thing. That's usually the best part to go. And I've always got a link. And one thing with me, the industry is always changing. There's always, new things. Like I actually started out in my digital part with the mastermind of doing trainings on, estate planning. My parents had transitioned into elder age, and I realized that, they hadn't set everything up. So that's how I got into the digital world, is because I wanted to put a course out there. And so, I have transitioned through different things. Once I got it all set up and going, it was too emotional for me because then my parents passed away. So I still have that course out there, but that's how I transitioned. So I think as a true entrepreneur, you're always out there, serving the people to what they need. And as I got in doing the masterminds, I realized people were struggling, that they couldn't really put their mastermind together because, they just weren't feeling like they were the experts or whatever. So that's why I saw the need for a virtual live summit. So a lot of times you'll see like I'm kind of doing different things, but it's because I'm servicing my client. I see there's a problem, like the whole tuxedo thing. It goes back to that. Yeah. I would not have went to floral school thinking that I was going to be in the top 10 for tuxedos. That just, didn't make sense. Yeah. But you get into it, you realize the problem, you solve it. And so I think when you're a true entrepreneur, and my kids always get frustrated with me. They're like, Mom, don't tell me how to do everything. And it's not that I'm telling them how to do everything. I'm like, well, have you looked at this? Have you done that? Have you, and they're like, I don't need, and I'm like, don't call me because I'm your mom and I'm going to solve your problem. That's what I do. I solve problems. So if you call complaining, I'm going to tell you, ask you, have you done this? Have you thought about that? Have you looked there? And they get really frustrated, but it's in my DNA. I solve problems, So when we had a restaurant.
So we had having you as I'm sorry. Sorry, please go ahead.
I was just going to say, we had a restaurant during the oil boom when we moved back to North Dakota. And I always said that I was a firefighter putting out fires with a checkbook. That's all I did is I just looked at all the problems that were going on. How do I solve them? And then wrote the check to, make everything go. So, wow. I just wanted to share that real quick.
That's really funny. As I said, I love your humor. That's great. Okay, so I will be giving the links with this video, how to reach out to you. And I am sure I am intrigued, and I would love to learn how to run virtual live summits, because oh my God, it scares me. Okay, I'm great. I'm very comfortable with one-on-ones, even offline. I love meeting people, in person, doing workshops, in a room. But this virtual live summit thing is so scary, and I would like to certainly demystify it without wasting a lot of years. So I think that's the beauty of self-education, right? When I learn from you, you are going to cram your decades and decades of experience into a single workshop or a mastermind, as Tony Robbins says, right? It's all condensing the decades into days. And if I
Exactly.
can get my hands on that, I'm going to save on not only that time, I'm going to save on the efforts, I'm going to save on the money. So I look forward to learn from you how to do virtual live summits. And I encourage the viewers to also reach out to Jodeen for learning virtual live summits.
Well, thank you. And, Rupa, the one thing I want to say to people is, first of all, we're all here to help each other. And
Yeah.
that's the power of it. And when you do those virtual live summits, really it's a simple way of just engaging with people and learning what's going on in their world and becoming their friend. And that's the fun part about it. And in a mastermind, that's what you get. You get that support, you get that network. And I encourage people, if you're in a position where, maybe your mom, you're a business owner, you got all these things going on, and right now you can't get into that mastermind. You just, it won't work. Get into that imaginary one. Start talking to those people.
Yeah.
Find, who is your mentors? Who would you like to have in that, that. One of the questions I just put out on President's Day here in the United States was list 5 presidents that you would love to mastermind with. And it was interesting, Jefferson came up, Washington, a lot of the older ones came up. And then even, the blunder ones that, like Nixon, they're like, they would have a lot of experience to share, so I thought it was interesting. Of how, so I mean, there are ways that you can do a mastermind.
Right.
I think the big thing is just, if you don't feel like you're an expert in it, and you're kind of feeling it out, just start reading it and researching it, and you'll learn that you actually have a lot. And the one thing I want to leave everybody with is self-education. I know, Rupa, this is like your thing. Self-education is the next norm. And it's dear to my heart too, with having 5 daughters. We really, try to impress upon them that, you're going to be out, birthing children probably in sometime in your lifetime. Don't get that debt, accumulated, because, you got your debt, you got your husband's debt, you're going to need a new car, you're going to need a new house. And all of a sudden these new couples are coming up and they're like, and life is stressful enough. So, self-education, you can reduce that. And I want to make sure everybody understands what Tony's valued at like 500 million or billion right now, way more than, you and I can count in this time period.
Yeah.
He has no certifications. He didn't go to college. He has no certifications. He did the NLP, but he didn't actually get certified.
And he was almost blacklisted. I've heard that he was blacklisted for practicing NLP without getting the certification. Is that true?
Well, I can tell you my experience, because I go way back. When I was in we were in Colorado, so Denver was our closest area, and I was actually at a Dale Carnegie planner meeting, kind of, because when you're an entrepreneur, you're kind of checking out, seeing what everybody's doing. And so I was in this little hotel. Well, it was a big hotel, but I was in this conference room, and there was a lot of excitement going on next door.
Oh.
So I went to the bathroom, and I'm like peeking in because I'm nosy. And like, there's this big, well, it wasn't huge like he's got now, but there was like this little, stand and cut out, and it was, Tony Robbins. Ooh. And I was like, who is this? And it was when he was just starting out. So when I went back, I went to my library, because back then we had cassette tapes, right?
Yeah.
We didn't have Google. We had cassette tapes. So I went to the library and I checked out NLP, because I kind of got a gist of what he was talking about. And I, kind of, had figured out a little bit of who he was. So I checked out these cassette tapes. It was a set of them, and started listening to NLP. Well, and about a month later, or, when it was time to take the cassettes back, all of a sudden I get a phone call from the librarian. And I'm like, what? I don't have any overdue thing,
I was about to ask how many overdues.
I know. I was like, if I have a bill, it's under $5, I swear, And anyway, they were calling to make sure that we brought the NLPs in, because they had been recalled. So he had put out these tapes, but they had, the compliance and everything had caught up to him. So I had to
Ooh.
take them in. I handed the
Oh,
librarian my
wow, I
So
have
I know
never
it's
got an
true.
answer like this. So, wow, you've seen up close and personal. You've been part of that journey. Oh, wow.
So yeah, I do know when people talk about it, I'm like, oh no, honey, that's true because this was my experience. So it was the craziest. And it wasn't, I didn't really, and Tony had been around and I've kind of followed him a little bit, but it wasn't until I really got into the KBB and,
Yeah.
started really, really listening to his story. And then I was like, wait a minute. I remember, that whole,
You're
and I
the
kind of,
same guy.
yeah. And I was like, I put the story together, it was just like, oh, I had to turn in my, I had to turn them in, and I didn't really understand it, but, they had said that they had been recalled.
Hmm.
And I just complied because, it's a librarian and back then they had a lot of power.
Wow. That's some story. Thank you for sharing this experience. It's a real fun one and so much to learn just from that one piece of information that you gave towards the end. So good, Jodeen. Thank you.
And keep in mind, Tony had a blunder.
Yep.
Obviously, I'm sure there was some legal, things, and he
Mhm.
had to go through lawyers and whatnot. I mean, obviously, if the librarian is calling you
Yeah.
wanting these back, it was a big thing.
Yeah.
And so he didn't let that stop him. Yeah, he made a mistake, but it wasn't something that was gonna, hold him down. He didn't let it hold him down.
Very
He
true.
said he had a mission. Tony's overall mission is he wanted to feed the hunger.
Yeah.
If you know his story, that's his mission. And
Mm.
one of the things too that probably, the power of the mastermind and what Tony and Dean are doing too is, they're behind the Operation Underground Railroad.
Hmm.
And when my two oldest daughters were, getting into senior and junior year, I
Mhm.
just decided we needed to do some type of like mission trip or, figure out a little deeper part of humanity. And
Mhm.
so we booked our tickets to Haiti at 11 o'clock at night. And then when
Wow.
we woke up, they had that earthquake. And so we had to wait 10 days from where we were going to go into Haiti
Mhm.
because the airports and everything had to be fixed
Right.
up. But they
Hmm.
finally let us in. And so Haiti and sex trafficking became real to us because we actually were in Haiti. And a lot of the girls that are on the streets now for sex
Mhm.
trafficking were orphans that, their parents died or, they got, and these pimps picked them up off the street. So to me, we have a personal connection because we were there, we saw it, and we saw the real devastation. And, to see Tony embrace that sex trafficking. And if you watch that Underground Railroad that they put out, I was at Funnel Hacking Live when Russell brought that
You
to
did.
the
Okay.
world. And,
Hmm.
it just really hit my heart because we had been there. And so, and being in the oil industry here, sex trafficking is a big thing.
Hmm.
When before the boom started, we had one FBI agent in the whole state of North Dakota.
Hmm.
And when the boom got going, they actually hired 13
Oh.
agents to put them out here in our side of
Hmm.
the state because, the sex trafficking was real and it was here.
Hmm.
And so, we went from one to the state to, 13 just in our area. So, and having daughters, that's another, you always want to educate them. And so, Tony has some deep passions and he's putting his money where I
Yeah.
think a lot of us are scared to put our
Hmm.
money.
Hmm.
And we talk about it, a lot of people don't want to talk about those
Yeah.
conversations. And unfortunately here in the US, U.S. men are the biggest ringleaders of profiting or, paying for the sex. They're the ones that are keeping it going, so it's a real problem for us. And it's worldwide. It's not just in the U.S. here. So,
Mhm.
but I think it's, Tony has, he's made blunders, but he didn't let him stop it. He's helping feed, I think they're at millions.
Oh, yeah.
I don't even know the number now for
Mm.
feeding people. And
Mm.
then, going into the sex trafficking and helping as many people as he can.
Mhm.
And Tim Billard, I've met him and he's an amazing person, and just really have, bought in. So when I look at everything that, the KBB, the Knowledge Business Brokers are doing, it's very powerful. And Dean Graciato is, I think he's a very good student with Tony, but yet he's a great leader. He has a lot of knowledge that he's bringing in. So it's just a great movement. And I know that you've got, we're both, affiliates to them. So if you guys have any questions on how to get involved in a mastermind, I don't know, do you have your link up?
I will be sharing.
Yeah. So, I encourage you guys, get with Rupa and you get in on this movement, because that is probably the best way to learn a mastermind. Tony and Dean have done a great job. I have a different concept and a different view, and I know you do too, but it's a great training that even if you don't do anything with a mastermind, I think knowing Tony and Dean, they'll probably go a couple hours. So, book your time. So it is a movement. Self-education is going to be the next norm here in the US. I know our college systems are broken. They're not teaching, I was in that system where I went through a college degree. I have an associate's degree in flower shop and greenhouse management. So, I went through that system, and it didn't provide me with the tools that I needed to start a business. And it should have. And a lot of the things that I remember sitting in the flower shop when I was doing everything. I'm like, that accounting class did not talk about this.
Talk about it. I'm an engineer. I have done my engineering like millions of people here in India. And when we come out, not everything that we learn there is even applicable. My engineering degree did not even ready me, close to what I am today. I mean, especially the entrepreneurial journey. And that's what I was talking about. I mean, I have done literally my MBA without doing an MBA, just through self-education.
You do. And I think it's a stronger MBA because you actually have life experience, and you have, you've drawn from my life experience. So it's like those little things that, it doesn't cost you as, a fraction of what the college education is. And it's just gotten out of control. I've been griping about it for many years, and, having Dean and Tony out there as an advocate of saying this system is broken. I'm behind them 100%. So, make sure you grab one of the links, if you're friends with us or friends with me, but, if you're friends with Rupa, grab her link and get in on that. Rupa's going to be adding amazing value. I know that because I just can tell with everything that you've done so far. So, make sure you jump into those, because that, and like I said, even if you don't, buy into their course, you're going to learn from that webinar. So, that webinar being on there, and it doesn't cost you anything to do that. But it's a good opportunity to really, if this has been intriguing and you're still on here, that means that tells me that you want to know more. So,
so true. Very true. So once again, I would like to, encourage all the people who are out there. You might be just an employee, or just somebody who is aspiring to be an entrepreneur, or somebody with a passion or message. So if you haven't considered, starting your own mastermind, you should absolutely do that. It is not a rocket science, and there are free resources. As Jodeen, you mentioned, there are plenty of free resources. Go look up on it, attend, free webinars and seminars by Tony, Dean, and others to know a little more about mastermind. But even if needed, reach out to mastermind professionals and experts and people who have done mastermind. Reach out to them, get help. But absolutely, if you are not leveraging the power of masterminds, you are leaving a lot of money on the table, and you are not really doing service to your tribe. They are waiting to hear from you, and in a more interactive manner that mastermind is. So I would certainly want everybody, encourage everybody to reach out to you for virtual virtual live summits, masterminds, and let's stay in touch. We are here. I know Jodeen is here to serve. I'm here to serve. Pick our brains. Let us help you launch your first mastermind. And Jodeen, from the bottom of my heart, I thank you. I know your time is so precious, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart to be here and to serve and serve tremendous amount of value. The amount of information that you have given here is huge. It could be a course by itself.
Well, I want to first thank you, and I'm glad that we connected. And that's the crazy thing about this internet. You have opportunities to find out different cultures, different people from around the world. But the reality is we're all here for the betterment of the world. And, that I'm just gracious that, you allowed me to come on. Hopefully I've added some value to you guys and your tribe. And, more importantly, I look forward, if you ever come to the United States, you've got, a place to check out. You got to come check out the oil country of North Dakota.
Oh, yes.
That's
Thank you.
that's
That's really kind of you.
actually when I first moved back up to Tioga, I grew up here and then moved away for about 21 years. And when I came back, I worked for the economic development.
Wow.
And one of the things that I did just for a short period of time when I was trying to figure out, I ended up buying a restaurant just because, that entrepreneurship, me working for somebody else wasn't working. But I actually copyrighted Oil Capital of North Dakota. And then our boom came back. And it was funny because like some of the big cities were coming in and, well, we're the oil capital of North Dakota. And I was like, would you like to resend that? Because I've got a letter here from my lawyer that's going to, come down on you. So, that's one of the little proud things I am of North Dakota, that I got the oil capital of North Dakota copyrighted. So, and there again, that's, looking at that marketing thing of, we got to protect that. That's our, our trademark. And so I did do that. And, I think that's, as you become an entrepreneur, it's those little things that you can bring to the world and be proud of and learn how to do it. So, and I didn't know anything about copywriting. I was just like, we should probably do that, and so I looked it up and signed the paperwork. And then like a week later, the TV stations were like, oh, why don't say, oh, capital of North Dakota? And I'm like, yeah.
This is crazy, Jodeen. You know what? I need to dedicate an entire episode to hear from you what all you have been into. I know, today's call was more or less focused around masterminds alone, but I know you have been in so many fields and you have such rich experience. I look forward to get you back again online to learn from you and to help others learn from you as well.
As well. And the same thing, I look forward to giving you a chance to come on. And in fact, I'm going to send you a link afterwards because I'd love to have you on my tribe. We do, I usually check in with, it started out with like women entrepreneurs, but a lot of the guys were like, hey, I want to get in on this because I have a dear heart for women. I think, we struggle a little bit more on, that equality. And so I tend to, focus on women, but men come in as well. But I usually do like a half hour virtual live Zoom and Facebook. I used to do, Facebook, we can't pull in people in anymore. At least I can on mine. So, we do the Zoom and bring people in and just kind of talk about what you got going on and learn different cultures. So, I really encourage you to jump on my Facebook Live too, so that we can carry this on. And I usually check in with people about a year later of like, hey, what have you been doing? And it's fun to see the growth and what everybody's doing. So.
Right.
Well, thank you so much. I'm not going to keep you any longer, but I appreciate everything that you've done here. And, once again, check in with Rupa. She is an amazing person. She is on the right track of where she wants to go with this movement. And I just honor her and, keep going because you're going to make changes in people's lives. And a lot of times you don't even know that you're doing it. I just got a text message at like, it was about 3:00 in the morning because she's in South Africa. And she was thanking me because I had brought in an expert and she'd went, on and worked with him and had some deep healing. She actually did a healing and she was just like, I just got to thank you. So you never know how you're going to help somebody. And, it wasn't that I did it for her, but I introduced her to the person that she needed to be. And so, that's to me the amazing part of working in masterminds and, making these connections. So I look forward to having a win-win relationship with you and excited to see all your growth. And, I encourage people to jump in with you because you are on the right track. You're going down the right paths and your mission, I can tell it's a passion that comes from your heart. And, that's the thing for me. When I started, 35 years ago with the brick and mortar and, trying to help brides, it's just been a passion for me. It's in my DNA. And I think those are the best people that you can connect with when they have that true love to serve people. And I can see that within you, and I'm excited to watch your journey.
Such an honor to hear this from you, Jodeen. Thank you so much for your kind words. And I look forward to serve you and your tribe. And let's make some positive changes and let the ripple effects flow and help a lot more people than we can even imagine to help.
Exactly. And I'll leave with back to Napoleon Hill, whatever the mind can conceive, it can achieve. And if you can really resonate and listen to that and have faith and belief in that, it's going to take you so far. And, the other part of that is, let's make the change that's going to affect the generations to come. And that's by, being better people, being more compassionate, being more understanding, and willing to serve others, because that's where your real growth is. And that's where we're going to impact those generations to come.
That's so true, Jodeen. What a lovely thought to end this conversation on. So once again, I'm honored. Namaste. Thank you so much for being here. I look forward to serve you again. I look forward to get you back online again soon.
Any way I can serve you, reach out to me, hon.
Thank you. And I'll be giving the links to for people to reach out to you too. And I look forward to work with you again. Thank you so much, Jodeen. Have a lovely day and lots of love to your 5 daughters.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Bye, Jodeen. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.